The villagers of Obuneze had a rule, one that every child learned before they could even walk: never touch the shrine. Never speak the name of the one buried there. And never, ever, light a fire near it. But Amaka, daughter of late Chief Nokidi, had broken all three. It began the day they told her she couldn't bury her father on ancestral land. "He died in disgrace," said Elder Ofogbu, his voice heavy with judgment. "A man who questioned the gods cannot rest beside them." Amaka didn't weep. She didn't kneel. She simply looked up, her eyes steady and cold. "If the gods deny him rest," she said, "then the gods are nothing but liars with clay feet." That night, she walked into the sacred grove with a bottle of kerosene, a box of matches, and her father's red cap tucked beneath her arm. The shrine sat beneath the oldest Iroko tree in the village, its roof of thatch and bones sagging from centuries of sacrifice. No one had dared go near it in years. Even the leaves seemed to tremble as Amaka approached. She didn't hesitate. She poured the fuel in a white circle, eyes blazing. Her lips didn't move in prayer, only anger. Then, with a flick of her hand, she struck the match. The fire roared to life like something hungry. The wind didn't blow, but the flames danced in a spiral, rising higher, brighter. A deep crack echoed in the tree above. And then, the scream came. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was like something remembered it had been trapped for too long, and now it was free. Amaka turned, frozen. The flames had not touched her, but her feet were rooted to the ground. The fire was burning upward now, not out but inward, into the shrine itself, into the earth beneath. The ground shook. The air smelled not of smoke, but blood. And somewhere inside the roots of that ancient tree, something opened its eyes. The next morning, Obuneze woke to silence. Not the usual morning hush before the cocks crowed, no. This silence was thick, like a blanket pulled over the village's mouth. The shrine was gone. Where it once stood, there was only blackened earth, cracked and smoking. The mighty Iroko had split down the center, its hollow heart bleeding sapped the color of rust. And at its base, etched deep into the red soil, was a symbol, one not seen since the first generations. The villagers gathered in whispers, staring from a distance. "She did this," muttered one. "Amaka," said another, voice shaking. "That girl has called something out." Elder Ofogbu stood at the edge of the grove, sweating despite the morning chill. He held a staff of ironwood, the same staff used by their forefathers to close ancient gates. "She has invited it back," he murmured. "We must act before it finishes what it started." But Amaka was not in the village. She was at the stream of Miriel, scrubbing the kerosene scent from her hands. Her eyes were red, not from regret, but from staying awake. She had seen it. Not with her eyes, but with something deeper. The moment the fire had touched the earth, something had looked into her. And smiled. A boy's voice startled her. "You made the shrine scream." She turned sharply. It was Obina, the blacksmith's 9-year-old son. He stood barefoot, holding a dead rooster. Its neck twisted, eyes open. Amaka frowned. "Where did you get that?" "It followed me home," he said innocently. "But when I crossed the old footpath, it died." Suddenly, the water beside her rippled. The air grew cold. And out of the riverbed, a hand emerged. It wasn't flesh. It was mud and bone, long fingers covered in tribal marks, nails like obsidian stones. It gripped the edge of the rock with strength that shouldn't exist in the living or the dead. Amaka grabbed Obina and ran. Behind her, the water boiled. The earth hissed. And the voice she heard from the shrine the night before whispered again. "Return what you stole, child of fire. Or I will burn your bloodline from the roots." The villagers thought the worst had passed. They were wrong. By nightfall, the dogs had stopped barking. Goats refused to eat. And at the edge of the village, an old man named Okafor the hunter was found sitting in his compound, eyes open, mouth agape, completely stiff. He was stone cold, but not dead. They say he heard drums coming from the river, whispered his daughter. Then he just froze. Meanwhile, Amaka hid in her late father's yam barn. Obina lay beside her, shivering. She had wrapped him in palm leaves soaked with salt water, the old way of shielding children from ancestral spirits. But even the air inside the barn felt like it was listening. A sudden knock. Amaka snatched up a rusted machete from beneath a pile of tubers. Another knock, soft, patient. Then the door burst open with the force of a storm. It wasn't a person. It was her uncle Ekwim, who had died 4 years ago in Enugu. He looked the same. Shirtless, dusty feet, the faded tribal mark on his cheek. Except now, his eyes glowed like red coal. Amaka, he rasped. The gate is open. You lit the fire, now you must finish it. She stumbled backward. You're dead. He tilted his head. And yet here I stand. Obina screamed and threw a piece of yam at him. The figure caught it and ate it. The sound it made, crunching, like dry bone, made Amaka gag. She slashed with the machete. It passed through him, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he disintegrated into smoke, leaving behind the smell of old blood and wet earth. Amaka didn't wait. She took Obina by the arm and fled into the night, sprinting barefoot past huts, past stone elders, toward the oracle's hut on the far end of the village. But when she reached the compound, the oracle was already waiting. Oh, croaked Nwadia, the old blind seer. So the fire child comes at last. How do I stop this? Amaka cried. I didn't mean to. You meant it, the oracle snapped. But now you must survive it. She handed Amaka an old gourd. Inside was a red feather, a drop of oil, and a stone black as midnight. Take this to the tree stump. Pour it where the roots split. Speak the name of the one your father feared most. Amaka's voice trembled. Who was it? The oracle smiled without teeth. Your real mother. Amaka stood frozen. My mother, she whispered. I buried her with my father. The oracle chuckled. You buried a woman. But not the one who birthed you. Rain began to fall, but it didn't touch Nadia's roof. It curved around it, as if afraid. Go now, the seer commanded, pushing the gourd into her hands. Before night finishes what fire started. Amaka and Obina ran through the dark forest. The wind howled louder with every step. The earth beneath their feet pulsed, like a heartbeat buried under soil. They reached the old tree stump, once part of the sacred Iroko, now twisted and black. Amaka knelt, her hands shaking. She poured the oil first, then placed the red feather into the groove. Finally, she dropped the black stone. The moment it hit, the ground shuddered. Cracks spidered outward in glowing red veins. Then, smoke. Not like fire smoke. This smoke had a form. It rose from the earth, swirling around Amaka, cold and choking. It coiled above her like a serpent, and then it spoke, in a voice like cracking bones.
I gave you to him in secret. He broke the pact. Now you burn in his place.
Amaka gasped. Ha. The smoke shifted, a figure began to form, a tall woman cloaked in shadow, her eyes glowing white, her arms made of feathered ash.
I am Adiz, she hissed. Wife of the fire god. Mother to a flame.
Obina cried out, stumbling backward, the smoke reached toward him. Amaka shielded him. You can't take him, she shouted. He's innocent. Adiz raised a shadowy arm. Then give me you. Suddenly, the trees around them bent. From every branch, spirits dropped. Pale, faceless, whispering her name. Amaka! 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 The dead had come to judge. Then, a new sound. Drums. From the village. Fast. Urgent. War drums. The villagers had gathered. Torches lit up the forest behind her. Elder Ofogbu appeared, flanked by hunters holding rifles and machetes. He pointed at Amaka. Stand aside. We end this now. But the ground split between them, flames shot out, forming a wall. The spirit of Adis roared. You want to end me, she bellowed. Then end your own blood. The flame reached toward Amaka, licking her fingers, not burning, but binding. Obineze pulled her. We have to go. But Amaka stood still, tears running down her face. I'm not leaving. The flames didn't hurt, not in the way fire should. They wrapped around Amaka like a second skin, flickering, whispering memories only she could hear. You were born in the grove. You were fed blood before milk. You carry your father's bones and your mother's rage. The hunters dared not cross the fire line. Elder Ofogbu lifted his staff but hesitated. She's not our enemy, he muttered. Not fully. Behind Amaka, the spirit Adis hovered like a storm, no longer smoke, but a full form, a woman of burning feathers, with eyes like lightning scars. You are mine, Adis declared. And the gods that cursed me must burn. You, my child, are the flame. No, Amaka whispered. I am not your weapon. Adis' eyes narrowed. You lit the shrine. I lit it for my father, Amaka said, tears falling through the fire. Not for war. For justice. The spirit circling the trees wailed louder. Then, Obineze stepped forward. He held up the red feather that had fallen from the god, now glowing with eerie heat. I know a story, he said, trembling. The one where the fire eats itself. Adis turned. Silence, child. But Obineze stood firm. You said she's yours. But what about me? He spread his arms. If you take her, you take me. A bolt of flame shot toward him, but it stopped inches from his chest. Adis growled. Something was wrong. The fire surrounding Amaka was shrinking, burning brighter but pulling inward. She was glowing. Her eyes flickered gold. I'm not just your child, Amaka whispered. I am what happens when the gods are wrong. She pressed her palms together, the fire gathered there, forming a swirling orb of flame and memory. You want revenge, she said. Here. Take it. She held the orb straight at Adis' chest. The spirit screamed, not in pain, but in recognition. Her form began to shatter, piece by piece, scattering ash into the wind. No, she roared. I was meant to rise. Ah! But it was too late. The flames swallowed her whole. The spirits fell silent. The forest dimmed. Amaka collapsed to her knees. The fire was gone. Only smoke remained, rising gently into the sky, as if the gods themselves had exhaled. Elder Ofogbu stepped forward, resting a cautious hand on her shoulder. What are you now? He asked. She looked up. Free. The morning after the fire, the air in Obuneze smelled different, not of smoke, but renewal. Birds returned to trees that hadn't sung in decades. The earth, once cracked and cursed, drank the dew like medicine. Amaka stood alone at the edge of the sacred grove. Where the shrine once stood, there was only a circle of ash, cold, still, but glowing faintly beneath the surface. She held the god now sealed with red wax. Inside, the last remnant of Adis, her mother, slept in silence. Elder Ofogbu approached slowly, staff tapping the earth. You carry the spirit of flame, he said. What will you do with it? Amaka looked at him, calm. Not worship it. Not fear it. I will bury it. Obineze ran up behind her, carrying a small bag of charcoal and herbs. "Are you sure it's over?" he asked, glancing at the grove. Amaka smiled, gently touching the burn mark now etched into her palm. "No," she said. "But it's quieter now. And I am no longer running." Together, they dug a small pit in the heart of the grove. Amaka placed the god inside, covered it with red earth, and whispered a final word. "Rest." The villagers watched from afar, not with fear, but respect. That evening, a gathering was called. The elders, for the first time in years, allowed a woman to sit at the circle of decision. Amaka walked in barefoot, her father's red cap on her head, and her mother's fire in her soul. "Let it be known," Elder Ofogbio announced, "that the gods judged us. And it was she who survived their test." From that day on, she became known as the Firekeeper of Obuneze, a protector, not a destroyer. And though no one ever rebuilt the shrine, they all remembered the night it burned.